Wow!
The Lexx is traversing a space-time rift, presumably the fractal core leading from the dark zone to the light zone. Stan, Zev and Kai are absent from the bridge, leaving 790 alone to talk with the Lexx. The rift has the curious effect of bestowing upon the crew and the ship itself enlightenment, specifically concerning events in their past and their future. 790 and the Lexx then use their newfound combined intelligences, both having gained a temporary IQ boost from the rift, to tell them who they are is not revealed, presumably this is a reference to the viewers, their story. They discuss his divine shadow and the rise of the divine order, Stanley Tweedle, the death and unlife of Kai, Zev's time at the wife bank and how she became a love slave, and how 790 came to be, including the fact that his brain cube came from a waitress called Squiz Pimmel, who was reported for flirting with a cleric and had her body parts used in 790's creation. Lexx also mentions Zev's, starting with Z, death and rebirth as Zev, starting with X, but 790 reminds Lexx that this probably hasn't happened yet. As they approach the end of the rift, both the Lexx and 790 express their regret that they will not remember any of the things that transpired within the rift and will have their IQs reduced to their previous levels. The Lexx then leaves the rift and returns to normal space. When US Sci-Fi Channel bought the rights to the second season of Lexx, they didn't buy the first season, so there was a year's worth of backstory that had to be dealt with. Why Kai was dead? Who was Stanley Tweedle and how did he get command of the Lexx? Why is Zev half-class to lizard, etc.? So around October-November 1999, US Sci-Fi commissioned Salter Street to do a 1-hour special which would fill in that backstory. Most of it would essentially be a clip show featuring footage primarily from IWHS and GS, although rearranged and re-edited, with new narration by Jeff Hirschfeld as 790. Jeff and Tom Gallant, the voice of Lexx, were the only cast members available for the project since everyone else was going off to Namibia. Some extra footage was shot of 790 sitting on the bridge. Paul Donovan, who was writing Rated Lexx, apparently thought that having 790 as the narrator posed some problems, because he or she was narrating everyone's backstory, but 790 itself literally had no backstory of his or her own. So he decided to write a backstory for 790, which would amount to perhaps 10 minutes of the special. The actual footage itself was shot by Willie Stevenson with a German-American crew at a bar called the Golden Nugget in Berlin. 790's female persona, Squiz Pimmel, was a Czech actress model whose name I don't have unfortunately. The shooting took 1 day and technical issues were simplified by doing it without dialogue. So no boom mics, no sound checks, no sound recording. Everything would be overlaid by narration. In addition to laying narration and music over, post-production did do some compositing effects, in particular using the lava lamp background from Terminal in some background scenes in the bar, giving a view of the sky when the cleric opens the door, and inserting Squiz's image into the prisoner transport as it goes by. Background images, Squiz Pimmel's world is actually a shot of fire and water, and the building where she works is actually a shot of a water city, and were taken from the third series. Squiz Pimmel's journey to the cluster and execution, of course, is done by mixing footage from IWHS and Argon Protopi's execution. I think those scenes work particularly well because the episode makes some effort to introduce us to Squiz before she's tried and executed. Unfortunately for Squiz, Sci-Fi US hated Rated Lexx. They didn't like the Squiz Pimmel concept for one thing. It isn't suggested until very late in the second season that 790 has any human components, and second, It isn't even whispered until third season that 790 might have been female. They felt it might confuse viewers and give away plot points, some of which might never come up if they didn't buy the third season. They also didn't like a 5 or 10-minute segment on his divine shadow, who obviously wasn't a player in the second series, so why bother? As a result, Rated Lexx was recut radically, with some 15 minutes perhaps being dropped out. To bring the special back up to size, new footage was needed. Sci-Fi US was strongly pushing Zev as a sex kitten and pushing the Lexx sex angle in its promotion. So scenes were taken from second here, Zev's flirting in laugh track, the seduction scene with the captain in love grows, shots of Amy Kerr and Louis Wisherman, essentially a lot of beautiful babes were cut in. This undermined the narrative established by Paul Donovan, however, and so the whole thing made a bit less sense. To compensate for that, they inserted talking head scenes with the writers and actors from the second season documentary. This second version of Rated Lexx was the first Lexx ever aired on the US Sci-Fi Channel in January 2000. It did fairly well, garnering a rating of 1.5, Lexx's second highest rating ever. And it must have done its job of introducing the show, because the first actual episode aired to a rating of 2.0. Unfortunately, that episode was Nook. The broadcast version of Rated Lexx only ever aired in January 2000 and has not been seen since. A handful of fans have copies of it, so if you search hard enough, you can probably find it. The original version of Rated Lexx was eventually chopped into 5 segments and used in the American Lexx DVDs, but not the British DVDs. Dedicated fans can reconstruct the original Rated Lexx by basically downloading and splicing the segments together. I don't know whether there has been substantial re-editing for the DVD edition, but I don't think so. The US Sci-Fi Channel owns or is part owner of the rights to both versions of Rated Lexx, which is just another addition to what must be a really complicated legal rights situation with respect to the series.